for many years. Janice size love, and her entourage will be speaking today about the life on the bridges. You might find something that you don't want to know. But anyway, I think that you're decide that for yourself. Janice, with that, will you come on? And if you should need to leave, because the program will be a little bit longer, we're not very sensitive if you never leave. Hopefully, I'll see the activation. But we're looking forward to having Janice and her group speak to us about life on the bridges.
You see all my paper here with others. But seriously, if you feel like you need to leave, you have Nobody ever doesn't hear my voice. Ask my kids and my grandkids. But seriously, if you need to leave, please feel free to get up and leave. How many of you have heard this story before? All right. I hope you don't get bored. And now we're going to have a little added light to it because some of my family's going to add their 2 cents. If they start talking about me, then I'll cut them off. How many of you remember the old wooden Vero Beach bridge? You're telling your age because it was tore down in 1951. How many remember the old Wabasso Bridge? Oh, right. I told some of you, I spoke last month to the Exchange Club in Sebastian. 30-some people there, and when I said, how many of you remember or know anything about Sebastian in the mid to late 50s? You know how many hands I saw? None. So this was all Greek to them. But I see so many of you here now that I have not seen since those good old bridge days. So it's good to see you, and I hope that you will enjoy it and that you will be entertained. I'm going to share with you a little... Somebody call me. I'm going to share with you a little bit, and then my sister Charlotte will speak, and some of her youngins, if they're brave enough, are going to share some things with you too. February the 1st, 1938, at the age of 2 weeks. Now y'all know my age. I began my unique life in the house on that old wooden bridge over the Indian River, which connected the mainland to the barrier island, and that bridge was opened on Labor Day, 1920. The long curved bridge had a 145-foot steel swing span located over the channel, and that bridge opened, unlike the big causeway bridges today that they lift up to let the boats go through. This swung around with the help of my daddy and all of you that were able to jump out there and help me. That's what I like to hear. So many of you said they enjoyed it. We lived in that house, and it wasn't all pleasure, I can tell you. I moved onto this bridge with my dad, Ben Wood, my mother, Eunice, my 2 older sisters, Adele and Marjorie, and Charlotte. She wasn't that old then, but she was older than me. My brother, Teddy, and there were 2 more children born while we were living on that bridge. My sister, Sandy, and my brother, Byron. The house was located just west of that draw span, over approximately 20 feet of water. The house had 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a toilet, not a bathroom. And there was also a screened porch and a carport, although at the time we did not have a car. The water and the electric was in conduit that was connected to the bridge, and of course at the channel that went under the water. So we did have water and electric. And this is some of what Harry said you may not want to hear. Our septic tank was the Indian River. There was no active EPA then, as you understand. I would expect that for most of you, it's impossible even to imagine living over 20 feet of water and then to be raising 5 children in the end. She moved on there with a baby, me, 2 weeks old, 2 younger ones and 2 older ones. And my mom did deserve a medal. We didn't know it at the time, but we couldn't go out, so we were there under her feet. My dad, who had lost his right arm just below the elbow in an accident in the mid to late 20s, was operating a service station which was owned by his brother Bart Wood. And by the way, he was the first, in 1937, he became the first chief of police of Vero Beach, and I understand there were 4 members in that department, for the Vero Beach Police Department. He owned the station, and I always heard that my daddy operated, but my sister may add to this. I think it was my mother that operated it because my daddy worked for the WPA. If any of you know what the WPA was, it was a program started by FDR in his New Deal, which at that time, if people were not able to work, they did have to work. They didn't just go pick up a welfare check or food stamps. They had to work for it. So my dad worked for the WPA, and my mother actually did run that service station. And they lived in a house, and the service station was at Old Dixie, which is now US 1, at the corner of 12th Street, where Staples is now. And I think it might have been a Standard Oil, or I'm not sure. We'll let her tell it. She was there. I wasn't there. They were living in a small house just south of that service station. So when Senator Merrill Barber, and some of you remember him, when he came to my dad and asked him about taking the bridge tender's job, you can imagine how excited he was to have that. Although he was handicapped with just one arm, you never would have known it because he was out there working with the WPA just like everybody else was. So he was glad to be offered a job. So through Senator Barber and soon to be Governor Spencer Holland, we became the Bridge family. Now the bridge tender's job was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. And I understand that for the first 4 years that we were there, the barber even came out to cut my daddy's hair. Now somebody did relieve him on election day because I'm sure he had to go vote for Senator Barber and Governor Holland. And although we realize now what a unique life we were living there, we didn't realize it soon enough that we took good notes. So what we remember at this point is kind of skimpy, and some of you here will remember even more than we do, probably. Living as so many people did at that time, we lived on a very small income and very few conveniences. My dad's salary was $60 a month. $60 a month. And of course the house was furnished. So with that small income, fishing became very important to him, and he liked to fish. But he fished to supplement our meals and to supplement our income. There was a fish camp on the east end of that bridge where Riverside Cafe is now, run by the Crawfords. And the 2-story house that still stands there was their house. And so fish that we did not need to eat, we put on a croaker sack and hauled them down that bridge and sold them to the Crawfords to help with our income. Alice Vickers was a part of this church for many years, and that was her family that lived there. When we moved to the bridge, all of us children, with the exception of my 2 older sisters, were too young to be of much help, and the older ones were too old. My sister Marjorie graduated the year that we moved to that bridge, and my older sister Adele was already working. And if y'all have heard this story before, I stood corrected because I misled you when I said where she was working, and I won't say that again. She was working at a tea room, which was almost across from the service station on Old Dixie, called the Rainbow Tea Room. and that was owned by B.T. Redstone, and he was the 3rd mayor of Vero Beach. I found that out when I Googled it, but that's where my older sister worked. We were all too young. Oh, I wanted to tell you this too. My sister Adele was married. I don't think Judy is here today, but you know Judy Fletcher Henderson? My sister Adele was married to her uncle, Claude Fletcher. So Judy and I actually really spent a lot of time together when we were younger.
Janice?
Yes.
She also took care of him for many years, didn't she?
Adele took care of Mr. Fletcher. Yes, Judy's granddaughter. Yes, she did. A lot of you may remember that. She made, every year for my birthday, I got a coconut cream pie, and since she's died, nobody's brought me one. I thought somebody would step in. They really did. But she made the best coconut cream pie and peanut butter pies that you would die for. And a lot of people who were here back then remember her for that. At that time, we were too young to be turned loose outside with 20 feet of water under us. So my dad rigged up a lock. Now, I forgot to mention the pictures, but there is a picture you'll see when you look at these of that lock that he fixed. It was a 2x4 that he hooked up on the inside of the screen door. And there was a screen, I guess the lock was on the outside, there was a string on the inside. So until we got old enough to reach that string to go outside, we had to ask somebody to take us out. Now, if you can imagine, then most of you, the best part of your day is when you say to the kids, go outside and play. Well, my mother couldn't say that, so she was very brave. And all of these years were before mosquito control and air conditioning, and even fans for us. I remember Simmons Department Store had ceiling fans. That was the first time I remember seeing fans twirl around. But all the horror stories that you have heard about the mosquitoes are true. If you put your hand on the screen, and some of you, there's so many of you here that I've known for so long, I love seeing you here. Anyway, you could put your hand on the screen and take it away, and your hand would be outlined with mosquitoes. That is no story. That was a fact. There were mosquitoes and sandflies. And of course, since some of our snowbirds came down, they changed their name to no-see-ums. You couldn't see them, but they're still sandflies. And of course, this was not unique to the bridge. Everybody that lived in this area suffered the lack of air conditioning and the many mosquitoes. As each of us got old enough and tall enough to reach the string on the lock, we each had responsibilities inside and outside. And if Charlotte and I walk all over each other, just forgive us. And, you know, we lived in the same house, but we all see things different. And her story is my story, and my story is her story. We just see it different. But I just wanted to share with you that she had the inside duties because she was older. And of course, as I mentioned, my mother had 2 babies after we moved onto that bridge. And my duties were more, now she had outside duties too because she had to close one of the gates. 2 gates had to be closed when a boat blew its horn to keep the cars from either running up on the bridge or going in the river. So I think my older brother Teddy was blessed with having the gate on the far side, which means he had to run across that draw span and close that gate. And my sister Charlotte closed the closer gate that was almost in front of the house. And when a boat blew its horn 3 times, we better not wait until Daddy said, boat's coming. You better just get up from whatever you were doing, and it wouldn't be watching TV, but you better get up from whatever you're doing and go out there and close those gates. There were also 2 locks on the end of the draw that had to be unscrewed, but my daddy usually did that by the time they got the gates closed. As many times as I've done this, you'd think I know where I was here. I wanted to tell you about the mechanism that opened that bridge. I probably don't know any more about it than you do. I know that there was, under the draw span, there was works that operated that bridge that made it go around. And my dad had to put a post into a lock in the center of the bridge. And on the top of that was a 2x4 that allowed him, and those of you that were blessed to be able to help him open that bridge. Now, like I said, I don't know the mechanics of it, but when he put that in there and turned it, the bridge opened. And he told the reporter one time that it took him 14 and a half turns to open that bridge. And of course, then he had to make 14 and a half turns back to close it. He had a lot of help, I know, because a lot of even today have told me about being able to help him. Ace's wife, Marcella, had told him that she just loved being able to get there when a boat was coming so she could go out and help open the bridge. It wasn't as much fun for us, but, you know, that was where it was. We also had to keep a record of every boat that went through, which direction it was going, what time of day it was, what the weather was like, and then put the name of that boat down, and that report was sent into the State Road Department once a month. We didn't have a car when we first moved onto the bridge, and the grocery order was placed from Crawford's down at the end of the bridge, and then the groceries were delivered. And I understand if Mom wanted to have fried chicken for Sunday dinner, sometimes she was delivered a live chicken. Sometimes I think wish I lived back then, and other times I say, I like to go buy mine in the store. But then as we got older, we would walk into town, and we would go to a movie while my mother did her grocery shopping. The same Florida theater that you see on 14th Avenue now is where we went, and we were each given a quarter, and that was big money back then. But we could get in the movie, and we could buy popcorn and a Coke. And we saw a movie, a serial, a comedy, and we saw a newsreel that told us what had happened 2 or 3 weeks before we were there. Unlike looking at your phone now and know what's going on as it is going on. Those were the good days. I wish that Jim Beindorf could have been here today because he remembered that old bridge, and he used to talk about how much he enjoyed being on that bridge to help my daddy when he opened it. And I know a lot of you have a lot of stories that you want to share with us, and if time permits, when we get through talking, and we do like to talk, but if time permits, I would like to hear what some of you remember and what you had to say about this. Living on the bridge was a totally different life than most of you who live on dry land. However, my brother Teddy, and by the way, my brother Teddy was married to Eddie Jo, who's sitting with Joe back there, and she's still my sister-in-law. My brother died in 1982 at the young age of 48. But while he was in school and in the 4-H club, he raised chickens. These chickens were very clean because their feet never touched dirt. But he built a coop under the house and raised chickens for his 4-H club. And Teddy and myself, out of 7 youngins, were the only 2 that ever fell in the river. But we got out, nothing was hurt but our pride. People fished over that bridge, and I'm just talking to some people even here today, talking about that the most fun they ever had was when their daddy would take them fishing or shrimping on the bridge, and they'd put their lantern over and either dip shrimp or fish or whatever. And of course, being privileged as we were, my daddy had an electric light that he put downstairs under the house, and we would go down and shrimp and fish with him. Let's see. But when the shrimp were running, and people always loved to go shrimping, you know, we had a dip net. I don't know how to explain it to you, but we would dip the shrimp up, and that was an awful lot of fun. And people here today have enjoyed that. But when that bridge, when the shrimp were running, that bridge would look like it was downtown because so many lanterns. There would be from 50 to 75 people with their lanterns hanging over that bridge and fishing or shrimping at a time. Another interesting fact of the early years on the old Vero Bridge was that during World War II, the bridge had to be guarded and we had Border Patrol and Coast Guardsmen that were at our house. They were supposed to be outside because they had to stop and check every car as it went either way over to because the beach was over there, and of course you know the waterways. But those Border Patrol and Coast Guardsmen, when the weather was cold, we had one of those old kerosene heaters, you remember those? And they would use that to warm their coffee on. So they would come in on the porch, although I hope nobody told their, whatever it was, sergeant or major or colonel. We had two of those here today. So. Let's see, those people, I'm not sure how long they were there. I don't know how long they had to guard the bridge, but some of them became good friends of my dad and contacted him after that. But besides the responsibilities that we had of closing the gates and turning the screws around so the bridge could be turned, we also had other responsibilities. My daddy had fished, and as you know, he only has one arm, so he couldn't repair his own poles. The poles had to be shellacked. Don't ask me why. But I think it was probably just to keep us busy. We would have to shellac the poles, and then we had to fix the, he wanted a different hook, and he was very particular, but he couldn't hold the pliers to turn the wire to put the hook and the swivel on, so we did a lot of that. And we repaired the shrimp nets. When they get holes in them, it was our job to repair them. And we didn't have all the fancy thing that these commercial fishermen have now. I see them pictures of them repairing their fish nets, and they have all these things that they use. We just did the best we could, but we did what he told us and how he told us to do it. You can be sure of that. But he kept us busy. My dad had several poles, and he had them named. Don't ask me why, except that he was Daddy, And we remember that one of them he called Calcutta, and another one he called Cannonball. Now, as I mentioned to some of you before, I'm sure he had other poles named, but they were probably named names that I would not repeat to you today. Because depending on how well that pole did in his fishing experience, that's why how he named it. But he kept us busy, and as growing up, although we had none of the technology available today, I never, ever remember saying that I was bored. Even today, when I hear people say they're bored, I thought, what is that? How do you get bored? There's always something to do. And he saw, and my mother saw that we had something to do. We had docks that were under the house and beside the house, and in Vero there was a dock on the south side of the bridge. And the dock that were under our house and next to our house were our wash house, our playground, and our fishing and shrimping pier. My mother had three, number 2 or 3 galvanized wash tubs and a scrub board that she first used to do the laundry. And my daddy wore bib overalls. I often think of that. I fuss if I have to wash out a handkerchief and squeeze it, And she had to scrub those, and then there were clotheslines on that dock that she hung the clothes on. Now, in later years, she was able to get a washing machine that had a hand wringer on it. That was, I'm sure for her, that was a blessing. And probably for my sister, I didn't get into washing clothes. We all enjoyed fishing and shrimping while growing up, as much as we enjoyed eating them. But of course, being on the east coast of Florida, even then we had hurricanes. And but we didn't have weathermen tell us every 3 minutes what was going on, thank goodness. We may hear it on the radio, or the state road department would come and let Daddy know that there was a storm coming. And he had to fill kerosene lanterns that had red globes, and he would have to put those on each one of the bulkheads to let the boats know that the bridge was closed. And then we would leave. We'd usually go to my Uncle Bart's house, and in later times we'd go to my sister Adele's house, so we would not be on. They would come and chain the bridge, the drawbridge down too, so it wouldn't swing around. But I remember coming home to coconuts floating on the porch, and sometimes the screens may have been torn out, but I don't recall any bad damage that we ever suffered from the hurricanes. But it was a chance. We always had a good time when we got to go to Adele's house or somebody to visit. So my family lived on this old bridge in Vero until the old Barber Bridge was built and opened in 1951. Of the 7 children, 5 of us started schools in Indian River County, and 6 of us graduated from Vero Beach High School. With building the Barber Bridge, my daddy realized that he would not be able to fish because it was going to be a causeway-style bridge, and he used a cane pole, and also there wasn't going to be a house. So he heard that the Wabassa Bridge was looking for a bridge tender. That man was retiring, so he asked to be transferred to the Wabassa Bridge. And now my sister, who spent more time on, she didn't spend any time on the Wabassa Bridge. She's going to talk to you about the Vero Bridge, and hopefully a couple of her youngins will share something later on about the Wabassa Bridge.
As you can see, I'm the one that didn't get the height of the family, so I did go this way. Well, yes, it was quite a life, I guess. Like we said, we didn't know how unusual it was, so we didn't pay any attention, I guess. And we were just living. And you know what? Compared to today's world, people don't even know what we're talking about today when we tell you how poor we were. But you know, first of all, we didn't have the government to tell us we were poor. Second of all, if they had, my daddy was way too proud to have taken it. And third of all, we didn't need it because I had a good life. We all did. Talk about the games we played. You talk about the hands on the screen with the mosquitoes. That was one of the games we played. You could hold your hand up there, and when you pulled it away, the one that had the most perfect outline of their hand won. So, and then we had an old checkerboard that had long since lost its frame and the marbles. So we had regular plain marbles, and the ones that had the most green in them were the green marbles, and the one that had the most red in them were the red. We played Chinese checkers forever on that board. And fish. If you caught a fish, if you went downstairs fishing and you caught a catfish or a toadfish, and it didn't come off the hook real easy, you just left the pole laying there with the fish on it, and the next person that came along to use it would have to take it off. But you could always take the axe and chop their head off, and then you could get the hook out of their mouth real easy. As far as being older than she is, I'm 6 years and 8 days older than she is, if you want to know. So I'm very proud to tell you that I'm 85 years old and spent the middle 12 years of my life out there. By the time we moved to Wabassa, I had married this handsome man over here and didn't move up there with them at the tender age of 18. But, and she was right about Mama running the gas station during the day while Daddy was working on the WPA. And so I spent my first 6 years behind the counter of a gas station or out under the canopy. And we played with bottle caps of the Coke bottles. If you turned them over, you could run them through the dirt, and they were your cars and your trucks, and then you turned them with the open side down, and you could stack them up like blocks, and these were your houses and your businesses that your cars were visiting, you know. So you don't need money to have a good time and enjoy life. We just think we do today, and we all get so excited about it. We did not have a car when we first moved to the bridge. We got our first car when I was in the 10th grade at school. The same year that I started to school, I had 5 dresses, so I could wear a different dress every day of the week. We were rich. And I was usually the one that went down to the Crawford store, called the grocery order in. It always started with 5-gallon K-oil, which meant 5 gallons of kerosene, because that's all we had is a kerosene stove to cook on, and even for heat. As far as the bridge was concerned, you know, it was a good time in talking about shrimping and fishing, but at certain times of year when the crabs go by on the top of the water. I don't know why, but they did. We could stand out there on that dock, and there was a big, long, nice dock on the Vero Bridge. Mama didn't want us to wear our shoes during the summertime because her attitude was the shoes don't grow back and you do. So the dock could get pretty hot. So you put down an old magazine or a newspaper and stand on that. Those were like stepping stones, but we would take a pole with a line and a hook on it. You didn't need a bait. Hold it down in front of that crab, and they would grab hold of that hook and sling it up on the dock into one of those wash tubs. We'd have a whole wash tub full of crabs, but you know what? I don't ever remember eating them, but one time. I don't know. We did one time. Mama was cooking crabs, and one of them crawled out of the pot, already turning red. And if you want to see some excitement, watch your mom run around the house with a broom, trying to grab the crab that was, pinching at her the whole time. But, and I don't remember eating that many shrimp either. But I know, I've said so many times today, if I'll go to the store and buy shrimp, then I know Daddy is turning over in his grave because we're eating shrimp that are already dead. Because they were still kicking when you threw them in the pot at our house. We ate fresh seafood. Janet knows, she's nodding her head over there. I'm telling you. I should have made notes here because I had to correct her on so many things, Like she said, she and her older brother were the only two that ever fell in the river. And when, I don't even remember when she fell in. I know Faye Whittier caught her almost by the time she hit the water. We had finished lunch one day, and all of a sudden this huge splash happened, and when we all got up and went running outside, and Teddy was climbing up the side of the dock. He had fallen in, but he was already on. He said, I'm okay. So it wasn't even anything too exciting.
And he wrapped the rope on his head, was wrapped around his ankle. So when he threw that to try to get a fish, it pulled him over. It was a slow one.
But I don't know why we didn't, more of us fall in, because although if you'll notice, if I stood real straight, you'll see that one of my legs is shorter than the other one. I've always thought it was because, especially our younger brother, who is still alive, is 11 years younger than I am. But believe me, it was always somebody watched the baby sister. And I lived my first however many, that child sitting on my hip, that leg didn't have room to go. It was held down by that weight. But you really did have to watch the babies if they were outside. But that lock that Janice is talking about, and by the way, I got all the way down here and haven't even had to say this. This is my daughter Cindy. What do you call her?
She's Aunt Tuki.
What do you call her? Okay. She is not Janice, she is Tuki. She has always been. My daddy never called anybody by their right name.
This is sister.
Yeah. And the brother that's dead is brother. The brother that's still living in Georgia is Sluggo. Daddy came home the night he was born from the hospital, who was the first one of us that was born in a hospital, by the way. And he said, well, we really got a real Sluggo down there this time. And that's what he's been ever since. So he called some man that came fishing on the bridge Mr. Paderewski. And I have no idea what the man's name was. But he came to the bridge, to the house one day and wanted to buy some shrimp. Well, my brother-in-law was at the house. Well, he didn't know. He went to the door and he says, can I help you, Mr. Paderewski? And the man looked at him like, what kind of place is that I'm doing business with here? But Daddy always had a nickname for everybody. Like I said, I never knew the Wabasso Bridge. I have to remind myself times all these many years later when I am talking to my kids, they never even saw the Vero Bridge. When they talk about the bridge, they mean the Wabasso Bridge. And quite frankly, in spite of the fact that the house we lived in on the Vero Bridge was nothing that would have made House and Gardens. It was a lot better than the one they moved to in Wabasso. And for the first time in my life, when we moved down there, I lived in a house that had electricity and city water. Well, they lost city water when they moved to Wabasso, so you can imagine why that was going back to sulfur water. But, you know what? It's home. And we might have been, the houses might not have been that fancy, and we might not have had that much, but let me tell you something, we were clean. If there was anything, my mother was clean. My cousins used to make fun of her because here we are on the Vero Bridge, and that bridge was long, especially the west end, you know, went on forever. So we were probably a good block and a half to 2 blocks any way you looked at it from land. She swept that house from top to bottom every single day. And my cousins used to say, "What are you sweeping up? What is in this house that needs to be swept up? There's no dirt within 2 blocks of here, you know." She bathed us and washed us and our clothes the same way. We didn't take a all over in the tub bath every night. Wash again, number 3, wash tubs. And you never enjoyed life until you tried to take a bath in a number 3 galvanized tub in the middle of winter and don't touch the edges of it. But we were clean. So, I don't even know if I've covered what I'm supposed to cover here, except, if, you know, when we look back at it now, and we had fun. We really did. I caught a fish one time. I haven't been fishing, and I can't tell you when, but I was down on the dock, and the surface of the dock, at the edge of it, there was a crack in it about this wide, between that and the boards that went down the side of the dock. I was fishing through that crack and caught a snapper so big that somebody had to go down the side of the dock and pull it up because it wouldn't come back up through the crack. So you see, I'm an expert fisherman too. And anyway, if you have any questions, are they supposed to talk now?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, they're going to talk.
They know about it.
Okay.
No. We're very organized, y'all will excuse me. We are a family. One of the best compliments I had recently, and it made me say, "Oh yes, that's true." I was showing, and by the way, I have all kinds of pictures. I hope you'll be able to come up and look at them, and I'll stand up here to help tell you what they are if I know. But one of my neighbors was looking at one of the books and read the article that I'm trying to share with you today. And she said, "You have the best family." And I said, "Yes, I do." You know, we don't realize when we're living it. But she saw it just from reading the article, and that made me feel good. All right, so we're leaving the Vero Beach Bridge because they tore it down in 1951. So on another cold February day in 1951, we packed up and moved to the Wabasso Bridge. Now, I think Wabasso is 8 miles from Vero, but I'm here to tell you, I had never seen that bridge before, and I was 13 years old. Do you think any of our children nowadays would not have gone 8 miles in their 13 years? It amazes me now even to think about it. But anyway, we moved in up there, and as Charlotte said, and there are pictures if you'll look at these books. It was a rather pathetic looking house, and in fact, recently on Facebook, in growing up in Vero, somebody was talking, and they always confuse, you know, I have to get on there and straighten them out. They don't know which is the Vero Bridge and which is the Wabasso Bridge, so here I go, you know, get on my soapbox. But they referred to the house on the Wabasso Bridge as that shack. That stirred me. I had some choice words to say because that was my home. And as Charlotte said, our daddy was a proud man. And one thing he always told us, this is your home and you need to be proud of it. And that really upset me. And it did look like a shack. There are pictures of it here, and of course you would call it a shack. But It was our home.
Janice,
Yes.
however, it was not that different from the house that many people in Judy lived in.
Not at that time.
It's very typical
Not at that
Florida
time.
cracker house.
Although most of them had paint on them. And of course, the state road department took care of our house, so it was
They were not that very different, you think back on it.
right. That's probably true.
Daddy said if you call the state road department to repair the house, even if it was fix a hole in the screen, the only thing they need to do is tar it.
Yeah. The first thing I remember about moving to that house was the terrible smell of sulfur water. When you got, I think we borrowed a truck from somebody to move our few belongings up there, and I can remember getting out and going in that house, and I just wanted to throw up. I said this, and I was 13 years old, remember. That was the most horrible smell, but I want you to know, as years went by, I love to drink sulfur water. To me, that's the best drink there is a nice cold glass of sulfur water. And I don't even have to hold my nose to drink it. It's good. That wasn't the case then. I lived on that bridge from 1951 until 1958 when I left to go to college. Another disadvantage of that bridge was that there wasn't a place to park the car like we had in Vero. So we had to park our car on the west end of that bridge, and it was not near as long as the Vero Bridge, but it was a pretty good little hike. We had to park the car down there, and it didn't matter if it was raining or hot or night or day or whatever it was. We had to park our car down there. I like to tell that later on after I graduated from high school and got my own car and had to park down there, I would be so excited if I'd go across the bridge and Daddy'd be out there and he'd flag me down and he said, "I'll park it for you." I said, "Yes." But normally we had to park our own car and walk out. When we made the move, my brother and I both had to change schools. My younger brother was in elementary school and I was in the 7th grade. And Wabasso had a school. And some of the ladies sitting over here remember that I have a lot of friends here from Wabasso and Winter Beach and around, and Billy will remember this too. That school had 4 classrooms. There was one teacher that taught 2 classes. Now I was in the 7th grade when I moved up there, so I had Mr. Paddock, who was the principal and the teacher of the 7th and 8th grade. I had him half the 7th grade and the 8th grade, and then we had to come back to Vero to finish school. Also, when I went to Wabasso, First Baptist Church had started a mission church in Wabasso, Wabasso Baptist Church, and I have a lot of friends here from that church too. And I became a charter member of that church, and Imogene Chatham and her husband were, you want to say something? No. I want you to see her too, but she and her husband were big workers in that church, and when I first moved up there, I don't know how they got the word that I needed a ride to church, but a family by the name, the last name was Edwards, and some of those people are still friends of mine today. They would stop in their pickup and pick us up and take us to church at the Wabasso Church, which was then just a chapel. It's now been a church for how many years?
65.
65. Oh, 65 years. And I was 13 years old when I first started going there. I must be getting old too. But that church was my social life. We did everything. I'm amazed today that we have no young people in our church. What do they do, to entertain themselves? And I think most of these ladies here remember that too. That was what we did in Alfred. And we had cookouts. Whatever we did, we were all together, and that was the only social life that we knew, and we enjoyed every minute of it. But that church was a big part of my life, and Imogene still goes up there every week, and I think this week they had a revival when she was back and forth too, and it's so good to still have, that's one thing about First Baptist Church. We still have some old people here. I'm not going to talk about ages, but there's some sitting back in the back that have been here almost as long or longer than I have. And it's so nice. And how many of you raised your hand when I asked if you knew about these bridges? There are not too many churches in this town. Of course, we celebrate our 100th year recently. There are not too many churches that have as many old-timers still an active part of the church as this church does. and it makes it very special to us. All right, let me get back to my story here. Life was much the same on the bridge in Wabasso as it was in Vero, except that now I was the oldest helper because my brother Teddy was graduating from school the year that we moved, so he stayed with my sister Adele. And this sister had got married, so she didn't move up there. So I was the oldest helper. We still had gates to close. We still had fish to gut. We still had duties that had to be done. And there were some added chores because we didn't have Crawford's Fish Camp at the end of the bridge, but my daddy still had to sell the fish that we didn't eat to help supplement his income. So the nearest fish camp that bought fish was in Sebastian. And I think there were two there at the time, Judah's and Archie Smith's. And so Daddy couldn't run up there with one or two fish, so he would put them in a big ice box till he got enough to take up to sell them. You can't just put fish in an ice box without taking the guts out of them. So when I get home from school, that was my worst chore. And especially, you know, this is Florida and it don't get cold here. But you stand on the dock in January with the wind blowing about 20 miles an hour and a spigot up about this high running cold water so you can wash those fish out. Honey, it is cold, especially if the fish have been on ice. Oh yeah. But I think that was my worst chore. And of course my younger brother was blessed to have that job after I left home. Let's see, what did we do after we did the fish? Well, I've told you already that I like to fish. And I spent many a night down under the house fishing with my daddy. And of course, that was before they opened the Sebastian Inlet. And don't ask me why, but my daddy always blamed the opening of that inlet on not having as many fish in our river. And they didn't get as big. If you look at some of the pictures, I mean, we caught big fish. You know, we'd catch snook and trout that were this big. And that was fun. I didn't know how much fun until now I look back on it. And I wouldn't sit on a dock and hold a pole for 45 minutes to catch a fish now, no more than I would fly. But I did then, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Can you explain what you mean by opening inlet?
Well, the inlet had not been opened at the time. It didn't flow from the river to the ocean. It was just, yeah. And if you ever made a trip up to the Sebastian Inlet in early years, who was it? Somebody said something to me about it the other day about how you got up there. We used beach buggies. And weren't they fun? And you'd have to take a shovel because without a doubt you'd get stuck. And you'd have to dig yourself out. Also, you know, even back then I think it was very illegal to catch sea turtles. But certain times of the year, you could see them and see them laying their eggs. And I'll never forget that one day or one night, somebody had illegally caught a turtle over on the beach in their beach buggy. And going across the bridge, it fell off, almost in front of our house. Well, of course, they were afraid to stop and get it because they didn't know what the law would get them. And if you haven't ever eaten fried sea turtle, it was very good. And my daddy and brother drug it down the stairs to the dock. And
Daddy said that the law said you couldn't go in and catch them, but the law didn't say one thing about those that came to you.
that's right. That's exactly right. So we had sea turtle, and I think you just cooked the paddles, I mean, their feet. I think that's the part that you ate. There you go. Yeah. Yes. But that was a good thing, you know. Also, when we lived on this bridge, my brother Byron raised some chickens. Now, he didn't do it for 4-H, but he raised some chickens, and he sold them to the Susie Q. Remember the Susie Q on the highway there? The man bought his chickens, and he says that he paid him $2 a piece. And since the cage was already there, later on, he and my mother raised a couple of turkeys. And I'm sure we had fresh turkey for Thanksgiving and Christmas that year. I think I was gone by then, but Also, my brother mentioned that he couldn't come, and it's too bad because he would have corrected everything that I told you. But that's because he remembers much better than I do. But he told a couple of things he reminded me of, and one of them was the fact that he worked for the Joneses that had the place over on the river. During the fruit season, during this wintertime, they packed fruit for gift boxes and shipped it. And he said that he helped him over there one year. He said they washed the fruit in tubs and then wrap it up in that purple paper and put it in a box, and they would ship it off. Let's see. Another very exciting thing that happened to my family. Now, my mother had always assisted my daddy in his bridge tending job. Getting up when he got up, and many times going out and closing. Of course, there were times that we were in school and she had to help him, but she had never been paid for it. But in the mid-50s, the state determined that 24-hour shifts were illegal. So my mother started getting a paycheck. Our income doubled. Now, do you think that wasn't an exciting time for this old rich family? She even went out and bought a TV. It was a little while after that, and I think she didn't tell my daddy she was going to buy it because he didn't think we needed one. But that was exciting when she started getting a salary too. So I know that a lot of you here remember that bridge, and I don't know if the Benson girls have had to leave, but Joyce and Maureen Benson lived up there, and Joyce was supposed to be finding a picture of her and her daddy holding up fish that they had caught on that bridge. And many of you have helped him open the bridge. Let's see, I think that's about the end of what I want. Oh, there were a lot of fires on that bridge. Many of you remember going over there and the bridge being burnt. Most of them were put out with people with, they could put their bait bucket in the water and pull the water up. And of course they were burned from cigarettes, people smoking cigarettes. But sometimes the fire was bad enough that the bridge would have to be closed. And of course then we would have to go down Jungle Trail across the Vero Bridge to come back up to church or school or to the post office or whatever you needed to go to until they could get that bridge repaired. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask that my niece, Cindy, tell some of the things that she remembers, and if her brother would assist her, he can add something to it.
It's actually kind of nice to be here where people believe that my grandma and grandpa lived on a bridge. Whenever I would tell kids at the school at Fort Pierce that I'd gone to my grandma's house and they lived in the middle of a bridge, they kind of look at me like I was crazy. And so I guess maybe kids back there weren't going as far as Wabasso. But we would go there a lot of times on the weekends to see my grandparents. But then in the summer, sometimes we would stay there for a week at a time, I think, or maybe longer, I don't know. And I don't know, y'all were allowed to go out by yourself or whatever, but as far as I remember, nobody was really watching us most of the time. And when I was in Japan one time, I remember just weirdly one day that there's some kind of medicine in America that has a bee on it. And so the next time I talked to my mom on the phone, I said, Mom, what kind of medicine has a bee on it? And she says, well, Buffrin has a bee on it. And I said, well, Grandma Wood, she took those pills like all the time. And Mom says, I don't ever remember Grandma Wood taking Buffrin very much. But now, as a grandmother, I think we must have been driving her crazy. She might not have. I've heard all over they talk about how marvelous it is that a woman raised that many children on the bridge. But I think when it came to grandchildren, she was already getting older and kind of tired. So most of the stories that my brother and I remember are stories of us driving them crazy on that bridge. There was a lot of things on that bridge that we weren't used to seeing. They mentioned the kerosene heater. We didn't have a kerosene heater at our house. And so when we would go there was a kerosene heater. And also, as she said, the plumbing, the toilet just went right into the river. And the garbage disposal was right into the river. And so that was kind of exciting, and holding the kerosene lanterns and putting them over the water and catching shrimp, that was an exciting thing. Just so many things that we had not done normally. Grandma always bought a box of Cracker Jacks for us. And so we would get all excited about the toy. Once my brother just threw his little mermaid out of the Cracker Jacks into the water and then stood there. I can still remember just this sad, sad look on his face because it sunk. I guess he thought a mermaid was supposed to be able to swim or something. We got in trouble a lot. One of the things, and we're going to blame it on my older brother because he's not here, had the idea of taking a Coke bottle, and if you blow into it, it sort of sounds like a boat blowing its horn. And Grandpa would come running out to open the bridge in no boat. And of course he figured out that it was us, and so he used some of that same language that she was talking about him using. And got really upset about it. Also, we weren't as smart as they were about grabbing the newspaper. We were also barefooted, and so when a boat came, we would fool around to the last minute and then try to run out and jump on the drawbridge as it was turning around so that we could ride with them. But that bridge, it was wood and it had that black creosote or whatever you call that stuff on there, and it'll burn your feet really bad. So we would be out there just dancing around on it the whole time and trying to find a spot that had a little bit of shade from one of the post that goes up, trying to keep from burning our feet off while we're out there. But sometimes when we would run, we would, as it's turning around, we would jump on it just when there's just that much room left, And then he would use some more of that same language because he told us not to do that a whole bunch of times. We would mess with some of the fishing equipment when we were told not to. Once we were towards the end of, before he died or whatever, there was a new little building that was built under the house. There were some stairs that went downstairs, and then there's this little building down there that wasn't there all the time, right, Bruce? And some man came and helped him sometimes, named Kale or something. Okay. But anyhow, one time, Bruce and I were playing in there, and the door suddenly got locked, and the kerosene heater was on, and we thought it was really, really hot in there, and I guess because we knew nothing about kerosene, we didn't know how to turn it off, and we didn't know how to get the window open. We tried. It didn't open like our windows in our house. We rolled them out. But so we started pounding on the window, and Grandpa would come down the stairs and look at us and use that choice language and say, "Stop screaming." And we're like, "Help us, we're dying in here." So Bruce and I to this day say he was trying to let us fry in that little room underneath the house. We played a lot though, in and out underneath the house. We went down the stairs and played underneath. There's kind of like a little dock underneath there. I don't remember that we could walk to the end of the bridge by ourselves though. I think we did have to have Grandma or somebody go with us to walk to the end of the bridge. So it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed playing there. We enjoyed picking on Grandma and Grandpa. We had good food. I remember Grandma always made really, really good food. She cooked a lot. She made biscuits a lot and dumplings a lot.
I didn't say that.
So we enjoyed. We remember Sluggy, my Uncle Sluggy. His bedroom was sort of on a porch. The front of the house had a porch, and I think they kind of closed it in, and he had this bed that I remember had a metal frame on it, and he would play the guitar a lot and sing a lot, and Aunt Chicky would sing a lot, and so that was kind of fun. The mosquitoes were bad. I remember the mosquitoes being bad all of the time. That's kind of all of my memories of it, is just kind of fishing and playing out. In the summer, sometimes, Grandma would take us to First Baptist Waldasso's Vacation Bible School. And I remember one time we got picked up early, and the craft that I made, I didn't get to get my craft. So any of you that are First Baptist Waldasso, my craft might still be there somewhere. And The sound of the bridge, that kind of, when the car would go over, it made that kind of sound. And I still, I can still remember that. And the sulfur water, I loved that smell. And I loved the taste of sulfur water. And in Japan, there's a lot of volcanoes, and sometimes when you go around the pools of water around a volcano, it has that sulfur smell to it. And the very first time we were in Japan, and we got near a volcano, they were boiling some eggs around the edge where the water's so hot. And I remember telling Ron, I said, this smells like I'm at my grandma's house. And I was so excited, and Ron was doing what Aunt Tukey was talking about. He said, I'm going to throw up if we don't get out of here. It stinks. So it's funny that I've been places that have brought back memories of being on the bridge and seeing or smells or sounds that remind me of that. So that's kind of all I remember, really.
But all we stood up here and talked about was Dad's bad language and all the things he did, and Bruce wants to tell you something that he's still mad at him for doing. But you know what? My daddy, as we said, only had one arm. He'd lost it in an accident at work. He operated a crane on an elevated track in Jacksonville. It fell off the track with him in it, pinned him in. They thought he was going to die. We've got a thing in the paper where they put it in the newspaper when they really realized he was really going to live, but they had taken his arm off in the meantime. There was no such thing back then as workman's comp and all this kind of stuff, but the company gave him a lifetime job because he lost his arm on the job. Then the Depression hit and the company went out of business, and so did his job. Therefore, he lost his house. In all of this, his wife was accidentally shot and killed and left him with 2 young girls to raise. He married Mama, had another 5 kids. All this thing that we've talked about happening to him and to us. We never had anything. He had a 4th grade education, but he was a very smart man. He knew everything that was going on. He could add stuff in his head that you wouldn't begin to attempt to do. He put every one of us through school. Never, one of the things he taught me, he never complained about his life. Never once did I hear him say what a bad deal he had gotten in this world, that he was so mistreated. His attitude was, if you've got one pair of overalls on and another in the wash, what more can you ask for? He was a good man.
Floor is open. This is my nephew, Bruce. We made it for your years. He promised to be nice.
I'll be nice, because I have to be respectful of my grandfather. But I'll tell you the story that I still hold a grudge. That I was 5 or 6 years old, and my grandmother, we went to town, and she bought me a squirt gun, a water gun, and a ballpoint pen. I'd never seen a ballpoint pen before, so that was pretty cool. But so we got back to the bridge, and my grandfather used to sit on this little bench, and he'd fall asleep. And in the middle of the day, he'd lay there asleep. So my older brother, we would shoot him with a squirt gun, and he would think a pelican had dumped him. So he'd be looking up like that, and he'd be guessing those birds. And of course, we just laughed. We couldn't stand it. So he saw us over there, and then he realized what we were doing. So we do it a few more times, and he knew what was going on then. But one time I tried to come up the stairs and squeeze by him there, and he grabbed a hold of me with that one arm, and he took my squirt gun and threw it over his shoulder into the river. And I thought, man, how can he do that? That's the only squirt gun I ever had. So I went and told my grandmother, he threw my squirt gun in, and she said, well, you shouldn't have shot him with a squirt gun. She didn't defend me, so. And, but I did have good memories of that. I had a lot of good time. I learned a lot there. I was only 5 or 6 years old. But fishing and all my memories are good there. There's nothing, it was just a different, I'm glad I had it in my life.
And Bruce talking about Daddy throwing his gun in the river, you know, that was, recently I was talking to AT&T about my cell phone, and you know, you get so mad at your phones, and I said, I just want to throw it in the river. And whoever I was talking to just kind of said, okay. They had no idea that that was what we did with stuff we didn't want. We threw it in the river. Right there. So, and as my sister said, we never, ever, ever were taught not to respect our parents, our elders, anyone, you know, and they weren't being mean in teaching us that. And we didn't think we were being mistreated when we knew we had to do that. And we didn't, I don't remember ever having to say yes ma'am and no ma'am, but we said yes and no. We didn't yell or intermittent. And never, ever, if they called us to do anything, did we say, just a minute. Never. Or we didn't even linger, you know. In the 1960s, the old hand-turned bridge was replaced with an electric one. The mechanics of the draw were still out in the center, so Daddy still had to go out there, but the gates were electric. So he could do without all of us youngins and grandyoungins. He could close the gates himself. Now that bridge, that drawbridge, was bought by Disney and is now a part of the Magic Kingdom. If you go to Disney, the track that runs around the kingdom, that bridge, and there is an article in my scrapbook about that, and it is there if you want to go and visit. There were also some bad accidents that were on that bridge. Several people were killed at one time or other. Most of them were caused on Saturday night. There was a square dance in Fellsmere. So about midnight or 1, you could look to hear people flying across, and Cindy said that clickety-click, it wasn't a clickety-click. I mean, it was a bang-bang. Some of you ladies who lived over on, and Marie Benson and Joyce told me they could hear it, and they lived pretty far down US 1. You could hear those boards. It was just an old wooden bridge, you know. And many times, due to drinking or reckless driving, a car ran into the river. Sometimes the people got out, and sometimes they didn't. I've only touched a few of the memories of our life on the bridge, and as we've all told you, it was a different life. We didn't know it. It was just home, and it was the way we lived. But looking back on it, for all of us to be closed up in that house, not being able to go outside and play. We got older. We went down and played hide and go seek at Crawford's fish camp, you know, and aggravated them sometime. But as a rule, we were all closed up in that house, and it wasn't bad. We had a good time. I wish that I had kept a journal of some of my experiences, or at least if I had thought about doing this before my mother and dad and my 2 older sisters had died, because my sister Adele was a dictionary of Indian River County. She said she wasn't nosy, she was just interested in people. But I could go to that phone and call her about anybody in this town, and she could tell me anything I needed to know. So it was a good life that we lived. I hope that you'll come up and look at the pictures and the scrapbooks, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you have. My dad died in February of 1965, and a couple of years later, another causeway-style bridge replaced the old wooden bridge in Wabassa. There was no house and no need for a bridge tender, because the bridge was high enough, which is still there, that the boats could go under it. They didn't need to sound the horn, and they didn't have to wave at the one-armed bridge tender. I appreciate all of you being here today. It's been so good to talk, and there are people here that I haven't seen for so long. And Joan Bailey's son came over from Sanford, and I knew him way back when I worked at Addison Oil. And some of the ladies at this table I hadn't seen or heard from in a long time, and Wanda and Karen back here. it's so good to have all, and Billy Harvey is here. If, you know, he's written some books and he shared with us before. You may want to catch him and see if he's got anything new to share with you. Ronnie Hutchison is here, who was one of very few families who lived on the east side of the Vero Bridge back when we were there. So it's just been fun sharing with you, and I do hope you'll come up and look at the pictures and ask questions. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you so much for that very interesting and enlightening presentation. Normally we meet on the third Thursday of each month. What's coming off? Well, down the pike, not in this order necessarily, there'll be one program dealing with what was it like in this county during World War II. And that would make a lot of memories of it, because it was entirely different at that time. You learn more about where did you go when you were across a bridge in Wabassa. Well, there's a Coast Guard station there, and that would be part of the history. You mentioned WPA. Well, it's been called many things, but there's a work in progress of administration. So those are something we'll be discussing. Later on, we'll have another program dealing with protecting your identity. Now, we can't be 8 people. You better protect your identity. If somebody asked me for a social security number over the phone, I'd say you have to be kidding. No way. But so